the sterling legacy. For years, she stood beside him, flawless, composed, quietly powerful. The picture-perfect wife to a man the world believed was untouchable. But that illusion shattered the night he walked into their family dinner hand in hand with a woman half his age, invisibly pregnant. He thought he was in control. He had no idea. The Evely Grand dominated the skyline, its polished glass and clean steel cutting through the last rays of dusk like a blade. At 62 stories, it was more than a hotel. It was the crown jewel of Everly Holdings, a multi-billion-dollar empire spanning continents and industries. On the 58th floor, in a private dining room known only as the Apex, preparations were being finalized for the annual Everly Holdings family dinner. Part boardroom theater, part political ritual. Danielle Everly moved with silent authority. At 42, she had mastered the subtle dance of being the wife of Christopher Everly, the enigmatic CEO who had taken his family's business global. Her sapphire dress was tastefully modest, her diamond earrings chosen for elegance, not opulence. She adjusted the angle of the chandelier herself. "The light needs to be lower," she told the manager. "Chris prefers a warmer glow during discussions." "Of course, Mrs. Everly," the man nodded, disappearing to comply. She inspected the table. Crystalware gleamed. Silver cutlery was placed with military precision. At this dinner, every detail whispered power. "Mom," a voice called behind her. A young woman stepped into the room, tall, striking, with long black hair and poise that blended intellect with inherited charisma. "Ava," Danielle greeted, pressing a kiss to her 19-year-old daughter's cheek. "Everything in place?" "Like clockwork," Ava said. "You always do it right." Behind her came her twin brother, Julian. More reserved, his expressions carried quiet depth. Less showy than his sister, but just as sharp. "Grandpa's driver just called up," Julian reported. "The board members are arriving." Danielle gave a small nod. "Remember what we said. Polite, engaged, non-committal," he recited with a smile. Ava rolled her eyes. Another night of pretending we're the smiling dynasty behind the scenes of Dad's show. "Can't wait." Danielle arched an eyebrow. "Tonight is more important than you realize." The girl straightened subtly, sensing something. "Is everything okay?" she asked. Danielle smiled. "Exactly as it should be. Now let's be ready. Your grandmother will be here any moment." True to form, the doors swung open. Evelyn Everly, matriarch, widow of the company's founder, entered like a monarch arriving at court. Silver hair flawless, eyes sharp. At 76, she still carried the room. "Danielle," she said, inspecting the room with a single approving nod. "Let me guess, Chris is late." "Again." "He had a last-minute meeting," Danielle replied smoothly. Evelyn sniffed. "His father was never late. Punctuality is respect. Respect is business." She leaned in, voice low. "You give him too much leash." "We all have our ways," Danielle said. Evelyn studied her, then surprisingly patted her hand. "Indeed, we do." The room filled over the next half hour. Executives and board members arrived, each greeted personally by Danielle, who knew their children's names, their dietary quirks, their latest investments. By 7:15, 14 guests were seated. Only 2 chairs remained empty. One belonged to Christopher, the other unassigned. "Let's begin with cocktails," Danielle signaled. "Starting without him?" Evelyn asked, arching a brow. "He's always loved an entrance," Danielle replied, lifting her glass. And on cue, the doors opened. Christopher Everly stepped in, 40 minutes late, impeccably dressed and devastatingly confident. On his arm, a young woman, no older than 28, elegant, radiant, and unmistakably pregnant. "Good evening," he said, his voice smooth. "Apologies for the delay." He turned to the room. "Everyone, meet Cassandra Wu, our Special Project Director for Asian Development, and the mother of my son, the next heir to Everly Holdings." Silence. Not a breath in the room. Danielle stood. All eyes turned to her. But instead of breaking, she smiled. "Welcome, MS. Wu," she said graciously. "We always seat our guests of honor beside me." Cassandra looked stunned as Danielle guided her to the seat beside her. Christopher blinked, his plan unraveling. You said she'd lose it, Cassandra whispered. She's shocked, Christopher murmured. Give it time. But time never came. Danielle carried the conversation. Warm, composed. Cassandra thawed under her grace, sharing ideas about emerging markets, her fellowship at Harvard Business School, and her strategy for blending Western luxury with Chinese tradition. Even Evelyn, who rarely gave praise, murmured, impressive. Christopher tried to steer the dialogue, tried to insert himself, but the room followed Danielle's rhythm. Her voice, her quiet gravity. Then came a question. How long have you and Christopher been together? Cassandra hesitated. 14 months, she said. I see, Danielle replied. And how long have you been with Everly Holdings? Almost 2 years. Christopher shifted. Perhaps this isn't the place. It's fine, Cassandra said quickly. I want transparency. Danielle smiled. I admire that. Through the meal, she never once raised her voice or let emotion cloud her expression. Yet Christopher, who thought he was the master of the evening, was losing ground. When dessert arrived, Danielle turned the tables completely. She asked Christopher about his plans, not for the company, but for the family. Their children, their marriage. Caught off guard, he stammered. Eva instructed the lawyers to prepare divorce papers, he said, voice tight. You'll find the settlement generous. And our children? Danielle asked evenly. Ava and Julian? They're young, Christopher said dismissively. They'll adapt. Ava's not shown real interest in the business. Julian's always off with his causes. Ava's hand clenched on her glass. Julian's eyes narrowed. Danielle didn't flinch. And Cassandra, she asked, will be replacing me at corporate events? I never intended, Cassandra began. Danielle waved her hand gently. Don't worry, dear. I'm just trying to understand how Christopher envisions this. Transition. He leaned forward. Danielle, this doesn't have to be hostile. You've had a good run. That villa in Florence you like, I'll include it in the settlement. Danielle's smile cooled. How thoughtful, she said. But before we discuss Tuscan real estate, perhaps we should discuss these. She reached into her bag and pulled out a document. The original trust, she said, drawn by your father when he restructured the company. Christopher squinted. What is this? The clause that places 57% of voting shares in a trust, controlled by the CEO's spouse. Gasps rippled. Christopher paled. That's not possible. I've been CEO for 15 years. Because I signed every proxy, Danielle said quietly. Check the board records. My signature is on every vote. Harold, the board chairman, nodded slowly. She's right. Evelyn sat back, eyes shining with something that looked like approval. You knew. Christopher snapped at his mother. Of course I knew, she said. It was your father's insurance policy. He believed in merit. And Danielle earned every bit of it. The room tipped into chaos. Danielle remained seated. Then, she handed out more documents. These, she said, are financial records, showing how Christopher has been diverting Everly assets to private shell companies. Without board approval, the board erupted. Cassandra's face turned white. You said this was legitimate, she whispered. It is, Christopher insisted. Restructuring. Then why is the Singapore entity in your name alone? Danielle asked. Cassandra pulled her hand away. You said it was for our son. Danielle's voice softened. He told me the same. About Ava and Julian. That it was for them. Christopher stood, shouting. This is a setup. It's verified, said David Lang, the company's general counsel, stepping into the room. And your authority is revoked effective immediately. You're firing me? Christopher gasped. No, Danielle said. I'm simply removing your proxy. Security was called. As he was escorted out, Christopher turned to Cassandra. You're coming with me. No, she said. I'm not. He left alone. The board turned to Danielle. She remained, as ever, perfectly composed. But now, everyone saw her for who she truly was. Not just the CEO's wife. Not just a symbol. She was the true power behind the throne, and now she held it fully in her own hands. 3 months later, Danielle Evely was named CEO of Evely Holdings. Permanently, she restructured the company's governance, rebuilt trust, invited Cassandra to remain a strategic partner overseas. And when her former husband's child was born, she made sure Ava and Julian were there. Because legacy, she believed, wasn't just about blood. It was about responsibility and the courage to protect what mattered most.